This podcast is part of the No Phony Podcast Network, the home of independent awesomeness.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of On the Road with Jim and Casey. Joining me, as always, James Morganti.
That's right.
Joining us today is author, actor in training, and EMT, Lisa Bagby. How are you, Lisa?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Very good. How are you holding up during this COVID situation?
For me, it's been no different. I'm pretty isolated and stick by myself, so I don't really notice anything.
Cool. Yeah, we things have changed quite a bit here. We're from Pennsylvania, but we're up in Michigan right now, and it's like it doesn't even exist here. No one's wearing masks or anything. So
That's kind of what it is like around here.
yeah.
Must be nice. Good.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? And I know you have a book coming out fairly soon, correct?
Correct. Very excited about it. I finished it, but then I almost finished it, but I couldn't end it just perfectly. I couldn't find the right ending. So I took some time and I thought about it, and I realized I was going the wrong direction, that the book wasn't primarily focused on this body, this guy that I found on my property. This book was focused about me and my life. I knew this guy for 2.5 months. He was a very small part of my life. And the main focus of my book now is not to dirty his name or to hurt anyone, but to empower people to get up and continue to move forward, even though they've lost everything and they've been bullied and harassed. Get up and tell your story.
Well,
and so that
so I was reading he was. I read a portion of this. I'm assuming you guys had a wonderful relationship and nothing was wrong, or was it? Because again, and then he went off somewhere.
that's pretty much it. I was introduced to him by an 80-year-old mutual friend, both of ours. She was an old rancher woman, and he worked on her ranch for years before he started driving the train. And she told me that he was the nicest guy in the world, that he'd been married one time, he had no children. And I had no reason to doubt her. I had no reason to doubt him. So we were friends for a couple months before he finally convinced me, well, not really convinced, but before he kind of won me over. He was very kind, probably the nicest guy that I've ever met. I have never been treated better than what he did. And I didn't question him. I didn't ask questions. I just believed him, and I fell in love with him. And we dated for 2.5 months.
And so what? Okay, so what happened? Like exactly, he went. I read just a little brief intro. He left your house, and it's terrible. He just, I don't know. Do you live in some sort of wilderness where he just went away and disappeared and came back? I don't understand the entirety of the story, and I'm not trying to put.
No.
It's almost like a missing. Have you ever read The Missing 411 by David Paulides?
No.
How people, it was in Alaska, the Yellowstone places, they're right there with you. And then all of a sudden, gone. And it's happened to hundreds of people where they're like, oh, they were just with me like a second ago, and they're just gone. And no one knows where they get. Sometimes they'll find like a shoe or something, but.
I found him.
Like, where did he go off to?
Well, on September 1st, he got up in the morning, and what happened was I woke up and I was hugging his back, and I reached over, leaned up to give him a kiss good morning. He was on his phone, and I said, "Oh my gosh." And he jumped up, and he scared me. I've never seen that look on his face before. He kind of tossed his phone at me, and he put on his shoes, and he picked up his work bag. It was a black duffel. And he walked out of the house, and I watched him out my bedroom window walk up the driveway. And that was the last time I ever saw him.
And he was leaving to your car to go to work, or, and I know this is hard. I mean, hey, how long ago did this happen?
It happened, he left on September 1st.
Of last year.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and you know, you see, you guys were only together. A lot of people would probably say, "Oh, you're only together for 2 months," you know. And yeah, love is fast and everything. But I went through something similar. I was with someone for 6 months. She dove into a pool, broke her neck, becoming a quadriplegic for the rest of her life, and then she ended up dying. Then years later too. My first love ever, right? But and like, you know, love is fast, and I get how that happens. So he woke up and he was scared at something that he saw on his phone. And you don't know what it was, but
I
or
do.
something personal, or, and he was just like, I gotta run. Was he running to save someone or to do something help in a helping way? Because you said he was like a great guy.
Well, let me explain. When you say, you know, you've only met him, you've only dated 2.5 months, and I understand that. But I lost my husband March 2nd, 2018, after only 1 month, the love of my life, to pancreatic cancer. He died after diagnosis. I wasn't looking to date. I didn't go to bars. I didn't go out. I lost my best friend. And when this guy came along, he knew that I was looking for one guy. I wasn't looking, I didn't want to have to go through 10 guys to find this one guy. He knew how broken I was. He knew how broken my son was. And I trusted him. And he told me he was that one guy. He told me he was that person. And I had no reason. There was no red flags. He drove a train. He could have passed any background check. There was nothing. There's nothing I could have done differently. I wouldn't have known.
What you don't? I know you're writing a book and everything. Like, can you say, like, what was he shocked about that he had to just run immediately for? And where would he have ran to? And then, like, you know what I mean?
He went by several different names, talking like more than 10. And he was involved in a lot of illegal activity. He was involved in a lot of vile activity.
Vile?
Vile of things that normal people aren't involved in, or at least as far as I know, they're not.
And this is stuff that you didn't know about when you guys got together, or he never mentioned any of this to you?
I did not know about it. His family didn't know about it. His friends obviously didn't know about it, except maybe some of the Seattle Railroad workers that harassed me continuously and silenced me and intimidated me, because they would say things like, "There's 50 of us and one of you." And they were right. There was 50 of them, 50 full-grown men that would harass me and silence me.
By vile, okay, I'm just going to get there, because I've talked about this in a lot of things. Was there anything dark arts and fallen and people into these diabolical schemes of the dark arts?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Can you describe vile then? What did you see it? What, his phone, or I thought you said he picked up his phone and he just
He did. He picked up his phone and he tossed it at me and he left. And so I went through his phone that day and I was basically in shock. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Half of the stuff that I was reading, I didn't know what it meant. half of the words that were used, I had to Google them because I didn't understand that terminology that was being used.
Can you say
And
what it is?
well, it's in my book.
Okay.
Oh,
With-
son of a gun.
So did you ever find out what he was involved with? Was it drug running with the trains, or?
As far as I know, there was no drugs. As far as I know, there was, everything was on his phone, saved from 2012. I saw it, the sheriff's department saw it. After the sheriff's department saw it, and I went out with search and rescue on that first day when, September 2nd, they went through his phone and I went through his phone, and they basically said that either one of his contacts met him at the end of the road. I live on a gravel dead-end road, the last house on the dead-end road. Either one of his contacts met him at the end of the road and picked him up, and he's at some bar in Portland, or else he's ended his life. And they knew why, and it had nothing to do with me. He was married. I didn't know he was married. Had I known he was married, I wouldn't have been with him. Had I known he had this dark side, I wouldn't have been with him. I had a normal fairy tale life, living on a mountain on a farm with my animals and my son. And this guy shattered my life. He ruined everything. Reputation.
How did he die? What was the final result?
He was found. I found him 17 days later. I went out with my dogs. I never stopped searching for him. I went out with my dogs, and they kept going into the brush. Usually they don't do that, and I kept calling them back, and they were very excited, and they wanted to go. So I crawled underneath the brush, and I followed them. And I smelled this horrible smell. And I looked, and I'm in Oregon, so the brush is dense. Like I said, my husband passed away at the top of my mountain. I can't maintain everything myself. It's very dense, a lot of blackberry bushes. And there was a horrible smell, and I pretty much knew what I'd be finding. I'm an EMT, and I've seen everything. But nothing prepared me for this. And I opened up this bush where my dogs were standing, and I saw his shoe and his pants, and
What was the result? What, like, when they picked it, when the police came, what was the result? Like, how did he die? What was the actual?
beside him, they found a .45 caliber, and they found the bullet casing, and they found a hard bottle of alcohol. And he'd been a gunshot to the head.
Right.
And then the sheriff told me that his body was very decomposed because he probably had been eaten by a bear.
So, man, that's terrible. By the way, I'm so sorry, and it's sad. And like, was he in these groups of people? Okay, because here in this podcast, we're against child trafficking and all this dark arts stuff. Because we try to speak life to people. But anyway, was this cabal of people that he was involved with? Are they actually groups of people that are like, I don't know how high level they are, and if maybe they're probably in secret societies, but obviously now, if they saw his phone, they know who these people are, the police. I mean, is there any way that they're going to be like, oh, it's Bill and like they're just naming groups of people that probably go to gun clubs and tuck their shirts in and walk around, you know what I mean? Like, can't they? Oh, these guys. Okay, well, we know that.
They were on the emails, which I have everything saved on my phone. Every bit of information I saved on my phone. And on the emails, there's names of people. There's phone numbers of people. There's emails of people.
Are they high level people?
I have no way of knowing that other than sometimes I Google their name and a few names come up, and I don't know anyone. I'm isolated. I live in a small town. I haven't been far. I didn't even know things like this could exist. But I know this group of Seattle railroad workers went on the news channels, on live news, and told lies about me. They said that he was coming down here to break up with me. He broke up with me 4 times, and that they even came down to my property to come get his stuff. it was all lies. I have every Marco Polo video of him. Every time he'd get off work, I saw him maybe twice a week. Every time he'd get off work, even the day of that weekend that he came before he went missing, telling me he loved me, he was on his way, he'd get here as soon as he can. We never fought. We dated for 2.5 months, 2 days a week. We always had a great adventure every time he came.
So he was just with you 2 days a week.
About 2 days a week, yes. He did not live here. He drove a train from Auburn, Washington, and then he would stop in Portland for 12 hours and rest. And then he'd drive to Walla Walla, and he'd stop there for 12 hours and rest, back to Portland for 12 hours to rest, then back to Auburn, and then he'd be off for 2 days. And it wasn't always consecutive 12 hours exactly. Sometimes the train would, they'd be working on the track, so he'd have 2 or 3 days off in Walla Walla. And this is just what he told me. I don't know if it's true.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't doubt him. I had no reason to ask where he was or what he was doing. I had no reason to doubt that he was lying to me about anything.
Wow. So were you ever at his place, or did he always come to your place?
He had an RV in Auburn, and he actually bought another truck so that I could kind of follow him around, because like it was a year and a half after my husband passed away, and I sat on this mountain and I really didn't do anything or go anywhere. So when I met him, I was excited to go places. So he bought another truck so that my son could use our vehicle because he went to college and work. And so like I would go to Auburn where he had a RV, and I would stay there until he left, and then he would go to Portland. So then I would drive to Portland, and they always put him up at the fanciest motel. The railroad company does. They always put him up at the fanciest motel there on the river. So then I would meet him in Portland, and I'd stay the night or however long, the 12 hours or maybe a day or whatever. And then he would leave for Walla Walla. And I only went to Walla Walla once because it just seemed too far for me. And I was just getting used to getting out, and I was just getting used to traveling a little bit, and I was staying within my comfort zone. So then if I didn't follow him, and then he would have his own vehicle so he could come here to my house if I wasn't on the road traveling, because I had animals and I have responsibilities. So, 2.5 months, we went everywhere. I have hundreds of pictures of all the adventures we did in all the places we went.
Wow. So the time that you were together, did you ever notice anything shady about, like, was he ever on his phone a lot, or did you ever notice any shady activities that he was doing while the two of you were together?
There was no red flags. The week before, he wanted out of Seattle, and he made a request through the railroad to transfer to Bend, to work in Bend. He wanted out of Seattle bad. I don't know why. He said it'd be closer, and I love Eastern Oregon. I grew up in Eastern Oregon, and I love Redmond area and Bend area. I'm like, that would be great. I'm not going to sell my 30 acres, and I'm not going to move, but I'd love to spend time there. And so he made a request to transfer there. And so he was due to transfer that week that he went missing. Now, that week before, I know that he was very fidgety, and I'd walk into a room and he'd be on his phone, and then he'd get off his phone. I'm like, what's wrong? You can talk to me. Tell me what's wrong. Tell me what's going on. Because I kind of had a gut feeling. And the worst thing that I could think of is, okay, you have a girlfriend or you're married. I'm like, are you married? He's like, no. I'm like, is there another woman? He's like, no. And he made me feel like there wasn't anything wrong, but still the gut feeling I had was that something was going on. And I believe that he was trying to get out of whatever he was in. And this group of Seattle guys, this group of railroad workers that tried to ruin my life by making me look like I murdered him, I believe that they had a hold on him and they weren't letting him out. And that's my opinion.
Well, okay, so you have, I don't understand what the problem, you have the phone and all these records of this vile activity that you can't say, which by the way, you can, I mean, you totally can, we're not, but because we like to dig deep here, and I need to get to see the bottom of things, because like we're not against railroad work. I mean, you know what I mean? Hey, we need the railroad. I get it. But if there's a secret cabal of big railroad people that are doing some form of occult, satanic, meeting in secret things, maybe, and then they grab your boyfriend, and actually, let me get when he left that morning. So he threw his phone at you, which you took because he wanted you to see it. He went to his car. Did he get in the car and drive off then?
He didn't necessarily throw his phone at me. He got up, he startled me how fast things happened. It happened so fast I couldn't even take a breath. And he like pretty much just like a hot potato dropped his phone towards me on the bed, just like a hot potato. And I just sat there. I didn't pick it up. I see the look on his face that I've never seen before. I was scared. I was frozen. He got up, he put on his shoes, his pants that were laying on the floor. He grabbed that black work bag. I never went through that black work bag. I carried that black work bag to the truck. I've carried that black bag into motel rooms, but I never went through it because I didn't think that I should strip search the guy or have to search someone that I'm dating. It never crossed my mind. I wish that I knew it was in that bag, and I wish I would have been a little bit wiser and not so naive. And I wish I would have looked in that bag just one time, but I didn't. But he always had that bag with him. He never let that bag out of his sight. It was always next to him. That was his work bag. And they found that work bag shoved down into a hole, and they dug it out with a excavator. I still don't know what was in that work bag.
They
It
never
doesn't matter.
told him. They never said what was in it.
No.
Another question about, you said that you found out later that after all this happened that he was married. Have you ever met, or has there ever been any encounters with his wife that he was married to during the time that you were together?
We did have a conversation one time. She said they'd been married since high school, and that he did have an extra phone, and she found that years ago. And on the phone, she found out that he was talking to some woman or something, and he had said that his wife had died in a car accident, and she confronted him with it. And it's like, whenever she would find something and confront him, he would go to leave, but she would jump in the vehicle with him, in his truck with him, so that he couldn't leave alone. So apparently this is how he probably controlled her, like, find out my stuff and I'm leaving. So she would jump in and she wouldn't say anything. They went to marriage counseling over it. I think that some of these things she knew about. She went by one different name that I know of that was on his phone.
Did you find, okay, well, before I get there, about how you learned about his wife, where did he go when he left? Did he go into his car? Because you said you saw him walking out. Did he go to his car and get in the car and drive off?
No, he walked up my driveway. I live on a mountain, and it's not odd that he would come here. I had a 7-centimeter mass in my uterus that I was due to have surgery for on October 1st. I'm an avid hiker. I'm an outdoorsman. And it wasn't odd that he would go and hike in the morning when he was here waiting for me to get up, or if I couldn't get out and walk. It wasn't odd for him to go up that mountain by himself. It was our mountain. That's where we hiked. And so I laid there, and I hadn't looked at his phone yet, but I did see the look on his face. And I looked out my window, and I saw him walk up my driveway until I couldn't see him anymore. I just laid there wondering what in the hell just happened. And so a while longer, I keep looking up there on the mountain, waiting to see him or waiting for him to come back, because I knew something was going on, but I didn't know what. So then I picked up his phone and I started looking at it. And there was no messages or anything that sent a red flag. But then when I got to the emails, emails from 2012, the craziest, dirtiest pictures. He must not have deleted nothing. He must have feared that no one would ever find he must not have feared that anyone would look at his phone. He must not have deleted anything from 2012.
When did you learn of his marriage?
After he disappeared on the 2nd. He disappeared on the 1st. I learned that he was still, no, actually on September 1st, I looked at his phone and he would talk about his best friend, Nick. And so I called him and he's like, no, I think he's still married. And I'm like, what? And then on the 2nd, it was confirmed that he was still married.
Is that how you learned about their relationship, about her running into his car, or?
No, about a week later, she finally called me and she wanted to come get his stuff, the 2 trucks. And I told her that I needed her to wait until I knew what to do with them. I had them chained together in my front yard with a logging chain because the Seattle guys were harassing me so bad, and the Seattle guys wanted to come get his stuff. Well, the police never searched the vehicles. I didn't know what was in the vehicles. My son told me that once when he was driving the truck that he gave me, he saw the extra phone in the vehicle, but he didn't think anything about it either. So I wasn't touching anything in those vehicles, and I wasn't going to let anyone else take them. So I asked her to wait. And then we had a conversation, and she told me some of their past and his past about having PTSD from driving a train. In his 14-year career, he ran over 8 people on the tracks, and it haunted him. And I guess from his childhood, his parents were very abusive. And I later got confirmation about that from his older brother, who was in the Marines, who said that they were beating his children and that it took him 10 years of counseling to get over that childhood abuse.
How did they find or know where the black book was? Was it the police that found it with an excavator?
The black bag?
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing, well, it's not funny, but okay, so they came and removed everything from the place where I found the body. And a couple days later, I was talking to the detective, and I'm like, him and I used to do like horseshoe art because I love horses, and we'd take horseshoes and sand them down and weld them together. And then he would bring railroad spikes from the railroad because that was his love. And then we'd weld them together, and we made an angel out of them. And I'm like, do you think it's okay if I go up there and just make a little memorial for him? She said, not yet, because they haven't found his bag. And I'm like, you're kidding me. And she said, no. I said, do you remember that hole that I sent you a picture of before I found him? The sinkhole with the stick, the branch pushed down into the hole with the slide off area. I sent you that picture of that hole. And you told me, no, you didn't think it had anything to do with it. I said, I bet that's where his bag is. She goes, do you mind if I send a couple detectives up there and you show them where that bag is? I said, absolutely. So that later that evening, 3 or 4 of them came up, and I walked them up on the mountain, which is just on the other side of my property line, only about 200 feet maybe where I found his body. And I have a trail that goes through there onto the mountain, and that's where I hike with my dogs. That's where I go jogging. So I'm very familiar with this area. It's not like I go and find this hole. I knew this hole was there, and I knew what was different about this hole when I was jogging by is there was this branch sticking out of it one day, and I reported that to her. And so I took them up there and I showed them the hole, and they're like, well, we'll come back tomorrow. So they came back with a tractor, excavator, I don't know what you call it, probably a tractor, and they dug up that hole and they found that bag in that hole.
Why aren't they? I don't understand. So that's if that was on your property, right? You wouldn't by rights. You'd say, "Oh well, I need to know what's in that," because your
The bag wasn't on my property. They gave me
Okay.
they gave me an inventory sheet, a pink inventory sheet. I have a video of them with the bag in the tractor and the volunteers standing around going through that bag about 800 feet away from that hole.
Okay.
I shocked. And I took video of it and I called the detective. She goes, have them leave your property immediately. They will be dealt with. And so I asked the volunteers to leave. They did. And I have it on video where they said they were inventorying that bag in front of 10 people. They admitted to it.
Wait, you said it was on your property then, right?
They went through the bag on my property.
What I have a question about the trucks. Did the police not know that they were his vehicles?
Oh no, they knew they were his vehicles. They're both registered to him and they both have Washington plates and they're both sitting in my driveway. And I said, one of the trucks was a brand new GMC truck that cost, I don't know, $70,000 that didn't even have license plates on it yet. And that was his truck. And he gave me the Toyota truck, a Toyota, I don't know what it was. It was pretty new. It was 2018 or something to drive. They absolutely knew those were his vehicles.
I was just wondering why you said that the police never searched those vehicles or anything.
Because there was no doubt in their mind that he had committed suicide. There was no doubt in his mind. They basically disregarded him as, I don't know what term to use, but they basically disregarded him.
Any foul play.
And yeah, and they just gave up the search on the first day. They didn't come back again until I called them and asked them to come remove those vehicles from my property because I didn't know what to do with them. Here, I think he's divorced. Here, she says they're still married. Other people say he left her in December. I don't know what's true, and I don't really care. But I have over $100,000 worth of vehicles sitting in my front yard that I chained together with a logging chain and a padlock because I was afraid something was going to happen to them, and I would be responsible for them. So I called the sheriff's department. I'm like, I want his stuff off my property. I don't know what to do with it. And he said, well, come out and get it. So they came out. I gave them the key to the padlock. They unlocked them and they took them. And after that, I don't know what happened to them.
So what's your thoughts? What's your guess on how he died? Are you more of the suicide or suicided, or are you more this secret society of inherent evil railroaders, I'm assuming, or some sort of powerful Seattle cabal group involved in these emails with some, that could have done something? Or what do you lean towards more? He was killed or suicided?
I don't know how he could have had a gun in that bag. I don't know how he could have. Guns aren't allowed on the train. I don't know how thorough they are about searching the bags. Alcohol's not allowed on the train. This was his work bag. Now, I did report, my son and I left one day, and there was this, and remember, I live on a small town on a gravel road. Everyone knows everyone. I live on a dead-end road. So if I'm the last house on the road. So if someone comes up, I don't live on the road, but I can see it. And I have a rental house that lives on the road. So my son and I were leaving, and there was this guy. He was a white guy, but he was dark. He had a dark goatee, and he had a hat on and dark pants. And he was dragging behind him like a brand new ice chest on wheels down a gravel road. I've never seen him before in my life. And he was so drunk. It was like 11 o'clock in the morning. And he was so drunk. He was wobbling through the whole entire county road. And my son and I just sat there and looked at him, and it was odd. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, what is he doing? Why is he here? And so I reported that to the police as well. I know that the people at the first house off the highway have a camera at their house. And I told the sheriff's department that. I don't know if they ever checked it. But I just thought that was extremely odd for around here. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but that's the only weird thing that I saw that was out of line.
So you're thinking more so he didn't off himself. Someone else, maybe he knew it was time. They something slipped up. You know, they probably had operatives somewhere around your property. He ran off, maybe. Is that are you more so thinking that than he just ran off in the wilderness, drank a bottle, and shot himself?
Well, like I said, it's hard for me to believe there was a bottle of alcohol, hard alcohol. I've never even seen him drink hard alcohol. I saw him drink beer, Coors Light, just beer once in a while when we went out for dinner, a cold beer. I never once saw this man drink hard alcohol, ever. I don't drink hard alcohol.
So you don't go either way, or are you in the middle then?
What do you mean? Oh, about that? Yeah, I don't know, because I can't imagine that gun and that alcohol being in that black work bag.
So when he left your property that morning, did he have the bag with him? When he left the property that morning, did he have the bag with him?
He always had that bag with him. That's
so
he always had with him.
So that was the only thing he left the property with, was that bag.
Did not take his wallet. He did not take his cell phone. He did not take his keys, truck keys. He did not take his keys for the train. He did not take his work badge. He left everything sitting there on his nightstand except for that black bag. That's the only thing that he took.
Wow.
All right. Well, I mean,
well, this is an incredible story, Lisa. When is the book due out?
I'm coming to a close end now. I'm not focusing so much on him and his dirt. I'm focusing on how I got over it and how I survived. This bullying and this harassing made me want to end my life. I lost everything.
From these secret society of railroad people.
And also the false reports. There was false reports that I found him buried on my property.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And they were redacted later. But you can imagine the damage that did.
Yeah.
Well, before Lisa, before we end the show, I always ask somebody, hey, leave a piece of word for our viewers and listeners. So, I mean, we've all been in that situation. I mean, I have so many friends of mine that are like, I didn't see it come. You know what I mean? How do you not see these instincts? It's almost like your discernment is totally turned off when you see someone and you don't see that everything's a lie. And you're almost like, no, that's okay. Or like, you just think like you maybe only see the surface level stuff. I have a lot of friends that are like, yeah, I never saw it coming. And then one thing leads to another. They get drunk and just like, you know, and people are punching knees into walls and headbutting. And like, I'm saying like knees and stuff. Like, what can you say to men and women all over the place? How can we discern these things, saving people all this time and energy, and say, hey, here's a way to find out if this person is some sort of brain damaged, drinking too much fluoride in the water, psychopath, I don't know. What would you say to have someone look out for that?
Well, I guess if it sounds too good to be true, it is. Just all I would have had to do is pick up his phone. He didn't hide anything. He saved everything on that phone. And if it sounds too good to be true, I thought he was the perfect guy, the nicest guy I ever met in my life. If it sounds too good to be true, it is.
So, nice guys, here a message to the viewers: stop being so nice. Start being maybe more weird, right? Okay.
No. No, I just mean
if it was a shitty criminal too.
If it seems too good to be true, it probably isn't. Just open your eyes a little bit and just pay closer attention, I guess.
Well, we appreciate you sharing your story, Lisa, and we look forward to the book coming out. And is there any way are you on Instagram or Twitter or anywhere people can find you?
I'm not on either of those, but I am having a website made, and it's supposed to be ready in a week or two.
Okay.
So it's in the works.
Great. Well, when you have that ready, send it over to us, and I'll post it with this video then.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and maybe let us know who the secret cabal of workers are that are inherently evil and possibly tied into dark arts and the occult, if you can. Because we're right there. If that's the thing, you know, we're always speaking life into things, and Jesus is the only one that heals everything. So
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.